I'm glad to be back here today, and I thank God for the opportunities He's given me. My big brother, Dr. Silvanus Sukafia, has been a great mentor to me and a great coach. He says things simply and sometimes using humor to say. It takes a woman of understanding to know that he means what he's saying. And he prophesies simply, such that he does not shake or stand on one leg, but what he says is a truth from God. And if you have a listening ear, let he that has ear hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying. Hallelujah. I thank God for this platform that He's provided for me. He's done it since 2009. He's given me opportunities all my life. He's helped me to stand on those platforms he's talked about. And most of the things I do, I watch the way he does it, and I try as much as possible to follow after his leadership and what he does. Each time he speaks, he's such an inspiring leader. And I want us to put our hands together as we honor my big brother and his wife, an amazing woman. An amazing woman. Hallelujah. Effective organization should be every leader's passion, because you can only be a leader if you have an organization. And if you don't have it, you discover that you've lost your job. Because when you're leading nobody, it's no more leadership. According to John Maxwell, you're taking a walk in the park. Yesterday we talked about the 7 S of leadership. And today I really want to go into succession planning and sustainability. And I want to start by talking about my 4 W's and H of ensuring an effective organization. Leadership is a key component of an effective organization. That was why Jesus raised leaders who would replicate his lifestyle and his works. Paul also built leadership teams with good sense of delegation. If you look at 1 Timothy chapter 3, from verses 1 to 13, it's all about giving instructions for leadership, telling Timothy how to get about it and how to do it and how to delegate, in verse 13 in particular. Titus 1:16, Acts 20:28, Galatians 2:6, Acts 15:22, Timothy 5:22. Let's read Titus 1:7. Since an overseer is entrusted with God's work, he must be blameless, not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not given to drunkenness, not violent, not pursuing dishonest gain. This is a whole lot of package for leaders. There are certain behaviors that is required of any leader. For us as Christian leaders, there are things that should not be said about you. In Timothy, 1 Timothy, the Bible says you must be a husband of one wife. Because being a leader, multitasking in many women is going to be a problem with focus. And so, God ensures that a leader is a husband of one wife. And I actually want us to think about some of these questions I'm going to ask before we get into the main thing we are going to be talking about. How do you measure your organization's effectiveness? Remember, every organization has a goal. And why is this organization established? What is it that this organization is supposed to address? How can you be sure you've achieved your goal? Who is doing what? Who is at the helms of affair? What is the qualification of the person? What's the person's attitude towards leading? What's the person's attitude towards their subordinates and their team members? These are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself. How am I planning? How am I training? How am I showing them by example? How am I living the life of what I speak about on daily basis? Is it do as I say, not as I do? No, a leader is leading by example and by influence, because leadership is about influence. People would like to copy you. Like I talked about me following Dr. Okafia. He doesn't need to put me in a classroom all the time and tell me what to do. I look at the way he leads, and I want to lead like him because he's an inspiring leader. Nobody would want to follow a leader who has nothing to show. If you are a leader, there must be tangible evidence of what you have achieved. How far has your goal been achieved? How is your style of leadership contributing to your impact and milestones? Where you lead, would you'll achieve results or not? What is the percentage of lives changed through your leadership programs? How can this change be sustained? Because it's not enough to bring change. We're talking about sustainability of that change. Because when change is sustained, it spreads to every nooks and crannies of the part of the world, no matter what, because that change will move from your location to another location, and that change will be sustained everywhere. I think we have a brother that came to school in Unica, Brother Soska, and today he's in the Gambia, still leading change of the contact he made in Cross River State, Calabar, University of Calabar. How can this change be sustained when you can talk about and when can you talk about the future? Who will lead the future? Who is going to lead the future within your organization? Have you raised leaders after your own kind? The Bible in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, in verse 28, it says, replenish the earth after your own kind. Your own kind, not another person's kind. No matter how successful another person is, your own success should be replicated. Where is the future of your organization? I started in Bayside. Is that where I want to remain? I started in Bayside, a very small community of people, and it was a no-go area even for government. And to the glory of God, I brought an evangelist from Bayside to this meeting. He's right here. Who has been influenced, who has been impacted by the ministry that God has given to us. And he is an evangelist in Apostolic Church, so he's leading change in Apostolic Church. A soul winner, very, very hungry for souls. And in Apostolic, leading real great change. Where is the future of your organization? Being at the top is a process of walking through these 4 W's and H. For sustainability and effective organization that will stand the test of time. So, and having said that, I want you to think about those questions. If they make sense to you, if they will help in your work, if you are able to answer those questions, you will discover that you would have achieved your work. 37, 38 on the book. I'm looking at succession planning and sustainability plan. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the two together, but you have sustainability plan on that, on the manual. And the essence of this session is to equip your organization, your church, if you are from a private sector, your private sector, with leadership skills and knowledge to achieve your organizational goal, vision, and organizational sustainability and plan for the future. And most times, we don't train our board members, we just gather them and then we tell them they're board members. So we want you to go back and equip your board and management with knowledge and skills that will assist them in carrying out their obligations and ensuring compliance to statutory regulation, which has to do with the policies and the laws of your organization or your church, and to equip board and leaders on developing a succession plan for the church, for your organization. Because succession plan means that you're at the centerpiece now, but you will not always be there. There will be a time that you won't be there, but there need to be somebody that may equal your skill or does better than you that should be able to fit into that space. If you don't prepare for that, then you're of all men most miserable. You know, I have a problem with Christians who always think they will always be at this side of the Jordan. They prophesy 120 years for themselves. There's time and season for everything. There's time to be here and there's time not to be here. And because of that, Christians don't write will, because when you write will, you don't have faith to live for 120. For sustainability, that should not be talked about. I will always be the head pastor. And I'm telling you emphatically, it's not going to happen. So you prepare for your exit, even if you're 25, because somebody else will have to succeed you. I want also that we foster interaction and creativity between you, your board members, and your elders, because this is very important. What is succession? Succession, in simple terms, is to make a conscious effort through identifying, training, coaching, and deliberate delegation to empower a new line of competent persons within a unit. It could be a church unit or the entire church or organization. Every unit in church should have a succession plan, because you could be promoted to be an evangelist and you're no more in the ushering team. You could be taken out to protocol and you're no more in the kitchen team. So there must be, as a leader, every leader must make plans for succession. It involves developing key skills, attributes, and knowledge that have been identified as important to the achievement of the organizational goals. What are the achievements that you want to see in your church? What do you want to achieve? You need to train people that can achieve those your milestones outside of you. You need to train people that can achieve those achievements that you believe you want to achieve by reason of the vision of the church, your goal. Your mission drive should also be to train men that can do what you can do. Yesterday, I talked about Jesus saying, go into the world, preach the gospel, make disciples of all men. In essence, train people that will take over from you. So discipleship It's about inspiring the next generation to take over. Mama Nosa said something very key about children. When you put them in focus at all times and not in the future, you will be able to equip them for now to deal with the issues of the future. These trainings could be either formal or informal. Jesus often spoke with the disciples at different times. Sometimes he talks with them at formal situations, like taking them out to the mountain and teaching them. After the teaching of the Beatitude, he took them away and also brought emphasis and answered questions that were bothering the disciples. And we cannot do differently. We need to do the same things. How can we identify people that we can transit power and leadership to? You need first to identify your organizational long-term goals. What are the long-term goals of your church? The long-term goal of Jesus was to make disciples of all men. The short-term was to preach the gospel. When you preach the gospel, you process the people to become disciples. It is disciples that can replicate after their own kind, not people you catch on the street and you just get them born again. They don't know the first thing about being born again, and they cannot transfer information that they don't have. So it's important for you to identify that long-term goal and equip the people with the information. Determine what you need to plan a pool of talent, an individual for a specific role. Now, you know the needs of the church in terms of leadership, in terms of achievement, in terms of impact, in terms of the change that you need to make. So you look at for individuals who have a one fit into this and will be able to achieve that. That's dynamic people within your church who may not have the skill to sustain the momentum of the church or the organization. You need to find people who are real leaders by the qualities that we read and by leadership skills that Delphine had taught us, and be able to marry this to get a particular resource person. And it doesn't have to be one, like I said yesterday. I hope it was in the plenary. I said, you don't need one person to be trained for succession. You could have up to 5. Within them, there will be one person that will fit into that position, and you'll be able to transit power. Review and map the key competencies inherent within the organization. You know, most times we gather people, we don't assess their skill set. We even when they're working with us, people can work with us 10 years. We don't know if they've improved or they've not. Periodic assessment is one of the key things to identify leaders that understand the vision, that are running with the vision, that are replicating the things that they have learned over time with you. And there should be all the time assessment that will help you to evaluate their capacity and the ability to lead change. Identify the long-term goals of key persons. Now, in our assessment tools in the office, when we ask people to do self-assessment, because staff have to do their own personal assessment of themselves, of their goal, of their deliverables, of their usefulness within the space of work they have been given to do. They actually assess themselves, judge themselves by percentage, and we're able to collect it Their head of unit also has a different tool that captures different information, and then overall, we bring it and analyze. Do you know when you analyze, you'll be surprised that you could get somebody who could head a unit. So you need to do that. You need to also assess your board members. Sometimes you bring board together, and for 10 years they didn't have gray hair when you selected them. After 10, 20 years, they are gray inside the board and they have achieved nothing. There should be deliberate effort to assess board members so that you know whether they are achieving the goal or they're infecting the impact that you actually originally brought them into the board to effect. Don't just leave your friends and your relatives in the board. They're not going to bring change because it's my sister or my brother's business. I hope you understand me. Yes, today I did say that my daughter said that it's a very difficult thing to have your mother as your boss. Why? Because I was harder on her. So, and when you have family members, they think it's a walk in the park. They come to work at any time they want, and they can destroy office equipment without anybody say, after all, it's the mother's thing. Even the manager won't say anything. And I had to, one of my daughters was a volunteer in my organization, and she gave an equipment to somebody that she shouldn't have given to without due protocol, and the person lost the equipment, and the equipment cost about 11,000, and I saw charge her. Her volunteer stipend then was 10,000. I collected the 10,000, and I told her to bring 1,000 quick from her account. Another, my daughter, who strove to work at will. I have 4 daughters. We strove to work at will and will not sign the time book. I kept quiet for 3 months. She paid 15,000 for it. They sent it to neighborhood care mother account to carry out projects in the community. It's not fun working in neighborhood care because there are policies that if anything is missing in your hand, you buy. So I was not being wicked. I was just implementing. I'm not like Nigeria that does not implement. I implement. And the other one, I said, if you come to work 15 minutes after the time, you'll be such as so and so amount. We will calculate your salary to 1 minute and we'll take it. And I fired the other of my daughter because she wasn't serious with her work. I fired her. When she came back from the university, she reapplied and we gave her the TOR. We threw the policies in front of her. Read, so that you won't say it's very difficult to work with your mom. And when it's God's business, you don't mess with it. Because your accountability is not just about the board. You account to God. Sometimes when it has to do with God's things, we do it as volunteers. At will, whenever you want to. When you don't want to, and the rain is so heavy, you look at the cloud, it's going to rain today. You pull your duvet that God gave you over your head, and you sleep. A leader is a leader whether it rains or shines. A leader is a leader whether everybody does it or they don't do it. A leader is a leader whether people are saying that there is no salary or there is COVID. You're a leader. During the COVID upsurge, we were invited and I was put in the task force in Cross River State. And part of what I did was to keep my office open because I was in the task force. And I brought some of my staff into the task force to ensure compliance of COVID behavior. So at that time, everybody was at risk. We were also at risk. But we had to do what we needed to do. We didn't say COVID is flying everywhere. We protected ourselves and we were on the street. Assign tasks that will change the individual's existing skills. Now, if you have found somebody that could fit into that space of leadership, you begin to assign tasks that will bring out that leadership ability from that person. And by doing so, we say that practice makes perfect. The person will practice those skills, and eventually the person will have mastery of that skill. Again, manage performance of their job. Manage it, manage effectively. Be able to manage it effectively. Make sure that they do things to the letter. Make sure that they don't sleep on their roles or function. Make sure you keep them alert. You know, when Jesus was praying at Gethsemane, every time he will come back, Peter, you're sleeping. You came here for business, you're sleeping. And he will wake them up. They'll rub their eyes, and Jesus goes away and prays. And then, you know, he couldn't pray like he wanted to because there were people he was managing to ensure that they too was praying. Whether they were able to speak in tongues for 2 minutes and slept, but the important thing is he made sure they were conscious of the fact that they came here to pray. Are we together? So in leadership, you make your subordinates conscious of their job. I'm here in Uyo. It's not like I'm using machine theory that I put the hammer. No, I'm here, but they're calling me, Mommy, we are missing you in the office. How long are you staying? Because there are other things that I do that I make them happy. So you need to balance it. Else, nobody will want to work with you. But there's some staff I've had over 10 years. There's some staff that I've had over 4 years. There's some I've had for a long period of time that are not my children. Why? Because you need to make the work environment motivating for people to like working. For me, I like equipment to be there. You can't give me money to do projects and you're not buying the equipment that I'm not having. And make sure there is equipment. Every unit has a 3-in-1 printer used by your unit. Your unit uses is that my office own, I'm not sharing with anybody. And then I have one printer for volunteers so that anything they need, I make sure there is cartridges in all those things and ink. I make sure we buy paper in carton. But don't waste it, because if you waste it, you pay. It's in the policy. It's in the policy. They call it the Bible of neighborhood care. Policies upon policies. So as your entry point, you're faced with policy. If you don't understand, they are going to do orientation for you, so that you will not say, I did not know. You know, ignorance is not an excuse in law. Also in the law in our office, ignorance is not an excuse, because the laws are available, so you read it. If you don't read it, you're the one in trouble, not me. My own is implementation. Okay. When should we have a succession plan? At what point in our lives? Succession planning does not start at the point where a gap has already been identified. They said, oh, the chief executive has become the country director of so and so, and the chief executive is leaving in 2 months. Because in our own organization, if I have to leave, I have to give 2 months notice. So anybody who is employing me must know that I will leave before 2 months. Because being a chief executive officer is not like being a program manager. Everything rests on you. You have to interface with the board, do a good transition process, and then you train the next person that is taking over. So that should take about 2 months. So it's not when there is nobody, somebody has resigned. you think about filling the space. That's why I'm saying in every unit, there must be. You know, the word assistant by English was well thought out. So there must be somebody that has the same capacity but is in assisting position. Where there is good visioning and management, having identified strategic direction, it is important to, number one, highlight the skills required to achieve organizational goal. You should have it in bullet points written down in the general office so that as everybody steps out, everybody knows the skill set that is required for each unit. The finance department. If you're in my finance, I harass you to do the financial professional training because you need it. You need to do that. You need to do that. If you're in other units, we make sure that you also try to do that. So when you're supposed to have succession planning, for every unit, highlight the skills required for a leader in that department. And let every staff have the opportunity to say, I want to lead. You know, there is competition in love is not jealousy. Lead and fall over yourself. Be the best that you can be. So those healthy competition makes them win award at the end of the month. Sometimes when they sit in their break time and talk about who is taking the award for the month, they will mention the person, and eventually when we vote, the person does not have it. Why? Why did he not win? Everybody will take time to talk about why. And so you learn. Now, what is succession plan? What is succession? Succession, in simple terms, we have talked about succession plan. Okay, there's what we call, Okay, we were talking about when succession is. Okay, you find out the existing skill, and then you also talk about it. And if there is a staff that have those skills, how can you mentor others in the skill that you have? Why succession? It gives an organization room for effective and efficient expansion by creating successful bench strength. Everybody has the strength and the capacity to deliver on the goal of the organization. It helps the organization to retain superior employees. Yesterday, I did talk about me having lost 2 of my staff to a organization, one to the other one and another one to the other one. In fact, this other one is a counselor, a psychologist, because they didn't understand the need to have a psychologist. And so the first place they could take is a psychologist was neighborhood. And then they call me, Ma, please, your staff has applied to be a psychologist here. And please, will you be able to give her to us? I said, ask the staff, because she has told me she had applied. Ask the staff if she's willing to work with him. If she is, I'm willing to let her go. And in that negotiation, I was able to hand over that psychologist to them, even though we have another a psychologist who used to work, be a pastor in Inside Bible Church, who is now a pastor in Untitled Chapter in Calabar. and has a master's in psychology, clinical psychology. So we sign him on 1 year. Usually we sign on contract with them. So, and he's a great psychologist. So, and you discover that your employees will become the best wherever they go. Organizations cannot afford to miss a beat in performance in order to maintain the flow of productivity. You know, when you have people who are capable of succeeding the organization and taking over from you, productivity will be very good. It reduces recruitment costs. You know why? Because even your volunteers will be so trained that when you need to do recruitment, you do headhunt. You don't even need to go outside the box because you have trained volunteers that have equal opportunity in accessing information, in reducing erosion of organizational culture and values and institutional memory because you've put that inside of them. Remember yesterday I talked about shared values, our core values being packed: persons first, accountability, credibility, transparency, and synergy. I had explained that yesterday. It serves as a motivating factor to everyone who works with you. Succession plan is the importance of the two key positions of the chief executive board chair. So that is why succession plan must be well planned and implemented. You don't just pick a board chair because you see the person. You pick a board chair because the person can contribute meaningfully to your church or to your organization. Somebody who can motivate other board members to be part of what you're doing and to encourage them to do what they should do. It is necessary. How do you renew your board? I talked about renewing your board yesterday. You don't allow one person to stay in the board over time for so long a period. Sometimes the person is not even attending board meetings in a whole year. You don't even have phone call, yet you have him on the board as a board member. Why do you keep such a board member? Board is supposed to be activity. Board is supposed to be very, very busy. So how do you renew your board? It is necessary to continually rotate the mix of board members in a board. You don't have to overhaul, but you keep adding people so that they can learn from the other board members. A friend of mine called me the other time when we called for board meeting, and she gave excuse that she would not come. And I said to her, you haven't been in board meeting for up to 2 times. And I don't know. You should tell me, what do you think I should do with it? She said, Vickie Emah-Emah, don't remove me in that board. I'm not going to smile with you if you remove me from that board. I said, but you know the rules now. If you don't attend meeting for 3 times, it won't be Vickie Emah-Emah. It is actually the operational guidelines you board members created and signed into operation. So I'm your chief servant here, doing your bit. So removing you from the board is what you asked me to do if you don't attend meeting for 2 times. She said, please, I will not be able. Okay, is the meeting going to be online as well? I said, yes. So attend the meeting. She was forced to attend the meeting because being a board member, we talk with you, we get your acceptance, we send you acceptance letter you sign, we then send you congratulatory letter attaching your role, your responsibility, your availability. If you like, stay in United Island. Just tell us you'll be there because we will make sure that we do online so that you can attend it. It is only bad when you don't attend at all. It helps the board to remain relevant and effective throughout the life cycle of the organization. Because if you have board members who are not active, they can kill the organization in no time. Nothing is happening. Remember, most times fundraising, like I said, churches don't talk about fundraising. Now you need to, because it is the new normal according to global theory. So you need to talk about it. Changes to the board is usually determined by organizational policy, performance of members, organizational principles and values. Changes in board, it has to do with organizational. Other conditions of renewing the board could be terminal illness, location to a different country where there is no access, term limit. Our term is 3 years. So if you meet your term for 3 years, it cannot be renewable once. Some organizations set age limits for their members, because sometimes if people get up to 70, they say their leg is paining them, they won't be able to come in for meeting. You need to discharge them, or you can just make them executive members of the board. The other, okay, we talked about meeting time, performance based on board changes, principle based on board changes. A person ceases to be a trustee if she does not possess the required qualification specified by the organization. Now, if you're registering your church, the person has an unsound mind, or the person is schizophrenic or bipolar in nature, you know that the person won't contribute meaningfully to the board session. Some people can resign based on personal issues. There are, how do you combat problematic board members? How do you get consent? How do you disengage them? Now, checklist for a chief executive, because you need to also assess the chief executive. That's the head pastor, has to be assessed as well. Because sometimes, like Delphine talked about, you're not doing well, you think you're doing well. Sometimes you're self-opinionated, nobody can tell you anything, nobody can engage with you. Every leader should be assessed at different level. And that assessment should be analyzed to be able, even if it's one-on-one, even if it means collectively, we sit down and talk about it. The day my daughter made that statement, it was collective assessment by all my staff and volunteers. And that was the most educating thing for me in that assessment meeting. And I had to explain why I was doing what I was doing. Okay, the checklist, I will do that in our session. The checklist that the leader should, it should be followed in assessing the leader of the organization. Now, I have done, if you check the brochure of this meeting, you discover that I took time to do sustainability plan, so that that is our own sustainability plan, so that you will be able to look at it and see what you can do for your organization or your church. Because sustainability plan, you do it like our own is for 5 years. How can we sustain this organization for 5 years? How will we sustain church for 5 years? Now people online. What can we do? Who will be responsible for what? Which board member will be responsible for this? Within the board, what are the committees that could be used in ensuring that this works well? So sustainability of an organization is how you can keep the organization vibrant, healthy, and productive, and ensuring that the goal of the organization is achieved. And it can take many forms depending on the size, the type, and capacity of your organization. Your sustainability plan can be a two-page document that focuses on a long-term or a short-term period. But you must look at your vision and your goal, which are the most important thing that your organization must have to take that first step to historically, holistically managing the impact, both positive and negative, that your organization has on the environment, on the community, and the economy. I don't know if you know that the church has impact in the economy of any community or country that it is based. The church, like Inside Bible Church, is paying salary. And I don't know if the staff of Inside Bible Church are paying tax. Are you paying tax? So you're contributing actually to the economy of whichever state you're a pastor. So the runner's idea that if you work in church, you're not supposed to pay tax is wrong. You're supposed, if there is a tax threshold that is allowable that you can pay in states, but nationally, you need to pay your tax, else we'll have a lot of church people in prison. I read on social media today how 87 members and pastors and leaders of evangelical church have been arrested. I wasn't able to read the content. I actually hope it's not what I'm thinking. Because as a church leader, if you're earning 30,000, I think the tax for 30,000 is about 1% or thereabout. So if you pay like 300 naira, what's that to the money you're earning? But you have your credibility, you have your integrity, and you're accountable for the fund that comes into your hand. And I'm also to that some churches I know inside used to have pension scheme or health, one of those. Pension scheme. Pension scheme is that you contribute and your staff contribute to your pension. I had to do that for my staff because we all need to have because if the staff leaves, there is continuity wherever the staff is. So you need to put all this in your sustainability plan, your future plan. To have a real organization, it has to be people focused. It has to be community focused. That's the only period that you can say that you've made impact. When there are no tangible evidence of the fact that you're touching lives, people cannot testify to your God. That's the truth. Like in my community, if you don't give them food, you're preaching, they'll tell you, amen. The food is part and parcel of that gospel. So you identify what is applicable in your community and you do it. Remember my church, London, after service, we'll have tea. To us, that tea was necessary because the cold almost killed us. Praise the Lord. Don't ask Dr. Kafia how he managed for 2 days. Because he cried of cold there. Pastor Fiemi said he can confirm. They had to go and bring extra heater for him. So they have to be giving us tea because it's cold. You need to identify that peculiar thing in your community to meet the needs of the people in your community. Shall we bow our hearts in prayer?